The most successful people in the world all have one thing in common. They've learned how to think big by developing a perspective of possibility. And the good news is, we all have the potential to apply the same strategies to achieve amazing things in our work and lives. Hi, I'm Rob Hartnett, and as your Chief Possibility Officer and host, I'm here to inspire you to become the star of your world as a person of possibility, through learning how people from all areas of life are thinking big and chasing down their dreams. This is the big athletic episode, this one. I'm really super excited. I'm going to bring you a triathlete, a Paralympian, a footballer, a surfer, and a super dad. His name is Dale Grant. Welcome to the show, Dale.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
No worries, Dale. I've been admiring you from a distance because you're so fast at everything you do. It's only when you slow down for coffee I get to see the full Dale and what he's like. But I was fascinated with your background. I've been fascinated with what you've been doing and how you've been competing for so long and doing amazing stuff. And I was fascinated to get you on this podcast. So thank you for coming on. Let's have a chat a little quickly though. So you're a Paralympian. You did Kona last year, which we'll get into more detail about. And you've been had a disability, I think, since birth. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about what you've done to basically have created these fantastic elements of possibility because you're just living the dream. So tell me about the disability and how that came about.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was born missing half of my right arm below my elbow, just below my elbow. So it's a congenital birth defect. It was a thing called amniotic banding, which, to be honest with you, I've never really gone into depth about what it is or how it happened or the reasons behind it or anything like that, just because to be honest with you, there's nothing I can do about it. So it was more just, I don't need to know about it, just get on with it. So yeah. It was, amniotic banding. It's basically a situation where the amniotic sac, I believe, it just didn't allow my arm to grow inside the womb properly.
Right.
Something along the lines of that.
That's all we need to know. So it's from birth. So you've had this from birth. Right. But it just hasn't stopped you, which is what I love about this. Now, we were talking off air. You were telling me that all these great, you pretty much did every sport known to man. That was a school. So you went to regular school, you went right through school, but you also played like at A grade level AFL football. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Well, A grade AMO's football, which is in the VAFA, Victorian Amateur Football Association. But this was, we're talking back through the late 90s through to mid 2000s. I played over 200 games with Mazenod. We were predominantly in B grade, but we did have a year in A grade in 2001. I was a good twos player, but I did play a couple of senior games for Mazenod in A grade in 2001. Yeah. So I was pretty happy with that. That was
very similar to me, Dale. I was a great D's player, and occasionally I got into C's. So I'm feeling you. Okay, I know what you're getting at. But now, how did you? I mean, you've just obviously, clearly, you're a completely great, fantastic kick. Football marking was just one-handed marks most of the time. Would that be right?
Yeah. Oh no! Look, my elbow. I've been able to use it in so many different ways. Just having that stump with the elbow, I swam with some other guys who didn't have the elbow joint, and it's only just a small part. It's probably maybe 3 inches long past my elbow joint got. But because it's like a lever, it can move back and forth. It just allows me to do so much with it. Which so I'd be able to lift. I'd be able to take marks out in front of me.
Oh,
and sort of clamp my hand and my my stump.
You're showing me. It's not visual right now, but you're showing me. I can see what you mean.
Football, so I could take overhead marks and stuff. Look, I'm definitely no Gary Ablett Jr., but I was not a bad twos player. Let's put it that way. I was no superstar, but my friends and all that sort of stuff would say that I could kick a footy, mark a footy, handball. I was a reasonable player, but nothing. Never going to make the AFL, which I wanted to as a kid. That was
well, of course we all have. I think there's a great. I don't know if you've heard of the actor called Jonah Hill, and he's a fantastic actor. You've probably seen him in a few things. He made a really good movie on skateboarding. Around the 1990s, and someone said to him, "So Jonah, well, you're a big skateboarder." He goes, "Oh man, I love it." He said, "But let me tell you, 10% talent, 120% passion." Sometimes the way it is, but we use our talents in different ways. So how did you then got into this? So after football, we got into swimming though. It was pretty serious at swimming because you went to the Paralympics with swimming. How did you
Yeah.
get into that? What was the switch?
Look, we went to my dad was always a super keen sportsman. Like he played football in the VFA and whatnot, played golf, all that sort of stuff. So he always encouraged me into sport. And when the Sydney Olympic Games came around, he was one of the first to go, we're getting tickets. And so we got tickets to the Sydney Games, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she came along as well. So Bree, and we went off to the Sydney Games, and I just was in awe of the whole Olympic Games situation. And anyway, I didn't know anything about the Paralympic Games, and that was 2000. And got back from that, and then 2 weeks later, I saw the Paralympics on TV, and I saw the swimming, and I thought, I've been a swimmer down at Lawn in the nippers and stuff like that as a kid growing up, and did a little bit of very minimal swimming at school. Like we do the school sports carnival. I was always pretty good, like nothing special, but like I wasn't the worst. And so I thought, I reckon I could do that. I reckon I could mix it with those guys, Anyway, so I went down, I did a bit of Googling, and I found a coach in Richmond called Kathy Acox. And I turned up to her swim squad one evening and sort of tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Hi, I'm Dale, and I'd like to go to the Paralympics as a swimmer." And she sort of looked at me and goes, "Oh, really? You want to do that, do you? Well, okay, well, have you got your goggles with you?" And I said, "Yep." And she said, "Okay, when you get." So I dived in and sort of swam up and back the pool. And she said, "Okay, well, you can swim, but like there's a fair bit of work and you've got to do. And, are you sure that that's what you want to do? If what you want to do, then you need to come to training 6 days a week." And so I would drive from Mount Waverley into Richmond and swim with her after, like, I was working part-time at that stage. So I'd go in there at, like, I think it was maybe 4:30. I can't quite remember, but it was, and I was swimming with like 11-year-old kids and stuff like that. And they were like super fish, these kids. They were all sort of state level swimmers and that sort of stuff. And I felt a bit out of place because I was a 22-year-old guy, and stuff like that. And these are young kids, like 14. Right. And felt a bit odd, but anyway, so I dove into that, and one thing led to another. I did state championships, and then I qualified for national championships, and within 12 months, I think I was ranked maybe second in Australia in the S9, which was my category.
Yeah.
And from there, I got put on the Paralympic preparation program for Athens, and so from there, they sort of target you to be a potential Paralympian. And so then I did a couple of meets overseas, where we went to Germany and did a meet over there, and in England, and where else did we go? Went over, and then from there I did a couple of races there, and then went to the World Championships in Argentina, and I managed to get fourth in the 50 freestyle. And so from there, I think they thought, well, this guy might be a chance to represent Australia at the Paralympics. So I went to nationals in the lead up to the games, and I managed to scrape in by, I think it was 0.05 of a second. Wow. Okay. So there were qualifying times that you had to be able to reach in order, because it wasn't sort of first and second over the line like they do in the Olympics and you're in. It was, you had to meet a certain target to get in. So I just scraped in and got myself a ticket to Athens as a 50-meter freestyler. And I did do that, dabbled in the 100 freestyle as well, and went over there. I was really disappointed in how it went. So I went ranked in fourth in the world, in the 50 freestyle. I had a bad swim and ended up missing the final, and I came 11th overall. Also from that, I was part of the 4x100 relay team, probably our second string team, because they would have a heat team, and then they'd have a finals team. And we had a guy on our swim team called Matthew Cowdery, who went on to become probably the greatest Paralympic swimmer of all time, but he was in my class. So he was the one. I couldn't beat him. He was amazing. The funny thing was, probably 8 months before the games, I was beating him, but he just had this amazing like growth spurt and went on and did amazing things, won gold medals and stuff like that. But I actually had a shocker. I had a really bad 100-meter swim, and they gave this butterfly S9 athlete over there a chance to have a crack at the relay team, and he actually outswam me. And then he did the heat swim, the team went on and won a gold medal, and I missed out on a gold medal.
Oh,
So,
no.
like, yeah, from that, I came back really dejected
Right,
and
right.
obviously like pretty disappointed. And I think that, along with the fact that, like, I'm going into it's a long-winded story I'm
No,
giving
it's
you.
good. Keep going. Yeah.
Also, at that time, only I think it was, yeah, a couple of years, or no, sorry, 2000. I'm getting my years mixed up. Yeah, 2003. My mum was diagnosed with cancer and
Right.
was
Okay.
given 6 months to live.
Oh, my God.
She managed to come over to Athens, so I felt like it disappointed her as well, which I know I didn't. She was super proud of me, and
Yeah,
all that sort of stuff. But deep down, you're feeling a little bit
for sure.
like I'd let her down and things like that. And so I feel like, because of all that, I've never really got over it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what spurred me on to continue to do these sports that I do,
Right.
I like start a
So,
triathlon and then go on and do Ironman, and always trying to prove myself. And I think I've been like that my whole life, where I've really just always wanted to prove myself.
right.
Maybe it's like it's like I'm a happy person, but
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
a
yeah,
small
yeah.
chip on my shoulder, like I can beat you, I can do whatever you can do, that
Well,
type of.
sometimes it's a driver, isn't it? And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
right.
Making the
Yeah,
making the Olympics is just such a huge
yeah,
thing. I know a lot of people who
yeah,
haven't,
yes,
who missed that cut to go. And you had a pretty
yeah,
good run too. I mean, you had a good run. You kind of, I love the fact. I'd love to take you back a little bit when you said, "I just reckon I could do it," and I really love
yeah,
that start because a lot of people don't get to that place. And what I've found when I'm talking about possibility, especially, a lot of people go, "Yeah, yeah, I can see how other people could do that." They
yeah,
don't, but they very. It's only a few small percentage of people who are like you who go, "I reckon I could do that." Is a big step, right? And in my book, I actually go between it's sort of step 4 out of 5. 4 is like, yeah, I can see what's possible, but for other people. Step 5 is, yeah, I can see what's possible for me. And there's a
yeah,
real gap. And you kind of just went to that 5, which I totally love. But then
yeah,
you took action, which is the other big attribute of people of possibility. They actually do shit. They get something. You went down there and said, hey, by the way, this is who I am. I want to be a Paralympian. It reminds me so much of Alyssa Camplin when she was doing snow skiing.
yeah,
Who tracked down a coach and said, "Hey, by the way, I want to do aerial skiing and ski jumping." And the coach said, "Yeah, okay, fair enough." And she goes, he goes, well, "What's your first step?" She goes, "Well, I want to learn to ski first."
yeah,
Because she hadn't actually been to a snowfield at that particular point. And we all know she won a gold and a bronze, right?
yep,
But that first step of saying, "I reckon I could do it," and then taking action. So that's huge, man. That's really big. In fact, you went there, ranking fourth, and there's we all have bad races, bad days, but I think having a complication of your mother in the background, that's pretty heavy, I mean,
yeah.
a lot of people have
It
pulled
was,
out of events because of that, and you went through
yeah,
it, which is to your credit.
yeah,
Yeah. So tell me about this. So after the Paralympics, when did you start to get into the Ironman triathlons? When did that happen?
yeah.
How
So
much later?
I hung in swimming for a couple more years
Right.
after Athens, and then I retired in 2006. And but whilst I was doing that, I still I went back and played a bit more footy because I just love being around my mates. And swimming is
Yes.
obviously an individual sport. It's very, very, can be boring and be lonely. But
Right.
I've always had a great group of friends around me that I love being around. And so I went back and played football at Mazenod for a couple more years. And I think it was just more, look, you get to a period in your life where you just can't keep playing footy. It gets a bit
Right.
hard on your body and
Yes.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
so I just wanted to look for what I could do next. And yeah, I just decided to go and do one of those local Gatorade races just for like fitness wise and have a
Right.
crack at that. And did that. And then from there, again, similar, sort of got bitten by a bit of a bug. And I thought, well, I am a reasonable swimmer and I can swim. I enjoy running because I've done that through my football life. And I had done a little bit of bike riding up and down Beach Road with a group of friends of mine who
Right.
so introduced me to bike riding. And so because of that, I just decided, look, it's a natural progression. I'm going to have a go at triathlon, which I did.
Sorry, can you slow down? I love the fact you just said, well, I can run really well. I'm kind of swing really
No,
well. I grew up as a nipper, so I had a
well,
couple of rides on beach roads. So the natural progression is triathletes. Not everyone does that. So you're a
well,
special guy. That's really cool.
no. Well, honestly, I'm not a good runner. I'm average, but like I'm prepared to have a go. So I
Yeah.
did. And then, yeah, from that, again, similar, like I think the thing with having a disability, it just opens so many doors that I think a lot of people who don't do disability sport, they might have a disability, but they don't
Right.
think that they can do sport. don't realize that the opportunity that's out there for people that do have a disability. There's so many opportunities out there. And it just, yeah, as I said, it opens up a lot of doors. And from doing that triathlon, the local Gatorade race, I then went and did the national championships, which they would hold up at Penrith for a few years there.
Yep.
And I did that, and then I got put on an Australian side that went over and did the sprint championships over in Auckland in 2012, I think it was.
How did you get into that? Did they just see the form you were doing and picked you up, or did you approach?
Yeah, well, I think when you do nationals, like you've got to be classified in your disability classification. So I did that, and then you're on their kind of radar, I guess, or whatever it might be. And then I was chosen to go to do the one in Auckland. So I did that race. But at that time in my life, I've got a wife, I've got a house, I've got mortgage. I've had my go at Paralympic sport, and I'm, now I'm, what am I? I'm in my 30s and stuff like that, early 30s, like 30, 33, 34, or something like that. Not getting any younger. But I really enjoyed that, like, outdoor active lifestyle that triathlon is. And we actually moved down to Beaumaris, where you're from, Rob.
Yeah.
And as a result, like, as you know, it's such a great place to do those sports along Beach Road and whatnot. So I've just continued doing the races, and then my friends who were my bike riding mates, schoolmates, football mates, we decided to do a half Ironman. Crazy enough, so we did that, and we're pretty competitive amongst one another. I'll beat you and you beat me and all that sort of stuff. So we had a crack at that, and we did the half Ironman. And then one of my...
Where was that, though?
That was Challenge Melbourne, in Melbourne here.
Yep.
And from there, like, as soon as you do that, like, you're doing an Ironman. If
you do a half.
You're going to do an Ironman. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think the other thing is, and again, sorry if I slow you down, but you've got such gold in what you're saying. You have a group of mates around you, right?
Yep.
And who spur you on, and you're all competitive. That is such an important thing to have. And are you aware of the date, which is the Strava day, which is like the kind of give up day? Do you know that one? Do you know about that story?
No.
So what it is, it's basically it's called essentially Give Up Day. Give Up Day is around January 19th every year.
Right.
And you watch it it's done by Strava, right? And Strava, because Strava watches the data. So New Year's Day, everyone opens up a Strava account, gets a Strava account, or makes a commitment on a Strava account, and by January 19th, it falls off the cliff.
I see.
Falls off the cliff. But what their data shows is that those who are riding or competing in a group or running in a group get back on the horse within about 5 days. Because their mates will go, "Hey Dale, didn't see you out there," or "Hey Rob, you weren't there for coffee, right?"
Yep.
On your own, you kind of never get there. But their data shows that in a group, looks after you in a group that's collective, you're back on the horse, and they see the data take off again. And it's a really interesting piece. So that's why I think it's really cool. You had those guys, probably drive you nuts sometimes, but at least we're really competitive, and you're all pushing each other. And of course, you do the half marathon, and it's now like, hey guys, we're going to do that. We're going to do full Ironman.
That's right. Yeah.
So what happened after full Ironman?
So I did my first Ironman over in Busselton in 2017, and I self-trained myself. I literally got a training program off the internet and just sort of followed that and did it all by myself. And I remember, like, driving because we stayed in a place just south of Busselton, my wife and I, and my daughter. And I remember driving to the race, and like, I didn't know, like, I'd done the short course distance races, but I knew nothing about like nutrition or pacing or heart rate or any of that sort of stuff that most Ironman athletes would be well aware of. And I remember getting in the car and driving there, and I'm like absolutely shitting my pants. Like, I was so scared, especially because I had no support around me. So I did that first race, and then as soon as I completed that, obviously I was like, I've got to do another one. I want to do better than that. I didn't do this right. I didn't do that right. So I got myself a coach, which I think is really important.
You kind of know also that you really enjoyed it. I think when you do it, you finish and go, I want to do another one.
That's right.
I remember Robbie McEwen saying about, when you think, if you don't know you're a cyclist or not, when you do an event and you're absolutely stuffed and you're almost vomiting at the end of it, you go, when's the next one? He says you're a cyclist. And so it's a really good, I think it's a good point, isn't it? You got these, right, I got to get a coach. I got to get better. So that's what happened. Yeah. Yeah,
correct. So I got myself a coach, Julie Teddy, from a local triathlon club here in Beaumaris. She's very well known and great lady. She's very inspirational, because she trains her butt off, harder than most of the athletes in her squad,
Yeah.
And back to your point before, being part of that club has kept me going. It's probably the reason why I've done it since 2017 to now, is just being amongst that group of guys, and we're all like-minded. We'll enjoy a beer, like we'll train hard, but then we'll have a good time together. So
Yeah.
I think, like you were saying before, just having that group of friends has really just kept me involved.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing that was probably the catalyst for me continuing on in the sport, just having that group environment again.
Now, can I talk about something just for people who might be thinking about this, because I certainly was. You're doing what's your favourite part of a triathlon now, or an Ironman? What's the is it the swim, the bike, the run? What's is it changed, and has it changed? I guess.
Good question. Yeah, it's a completely different type of swimming to what I was doing, because I was doing sprint swimming, which was pretty much, with my disability, I had to use my legs to kick as hard as I could for like 50 meters. And, my arms obviously came into it as well, but it was predominantly like I had to have a powerful kick. So this is completely different. Swimming 3.8 kilometers in an Ironman is all upper body, and you're trying not to use your legs as much as possible, just to save them for what's coming ahead. So I don't really enjoy the swimming part of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think really bike riding is probably my strength. If I were to say what was my strongest leg, I'd say the bike riding, just because I've got two legs, and my bike, I've got a comfortable setup and all sort of stuff on there, so I don't feel like I'm at a disadvantage bike riding or running. But I'd say I enjoy the bike riding. During the race, I enjoy the bike riding. I don't enjoy it as much during the training, because it is sketchy at times, on the roads, hanging on with one hand.
Well, tell us about that. So how have you got the bike set up? Have you got it's like both brakes on one handlebar? Yeah. How does that been changed for you?
Yeah. So it's all obviously modified to have all my gearing and brakes on the left-hand side. But I've got a brake and gear set up on the aero bars, but I've also got the same thing on the bull bars on the outside as well. So it's just modified slightly, so it's all on the left hand side. So but as I said, I'm fortunate that I've got my right elbow, because I can rest that on the other aero pad.
Okay, right.
So that makes it fairly comfortable. So I don't feel like I'm not uncomfortable riding a bike.
Right,
so,
you're not tilted like one side or
no, it's more just if I'm going down a hill and it's wet and the elbow pad gets a bit wet, I feel like it could be dangerous. I've just got to be careful, slip off, or all that sort of stuff.
It is,
I've got to ride with caution.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So now you're in the group. So take us through now. So you've been riding and doing the Ironmans. How did Kona come about?
Well, I guess, look, I mean, Kona's the race that anyone that does triathlon, the first question they'll ask you is, have you done Kona? And so, of course, like, it was always one that, like, I never thought I'd get to do it, but always wanted to do it. And, like, that's the same with all of my friends. Like, we've got quite a few guys in our club that have done Kona, and you sort of go, I wish I could be like that. And then anyway, so I knew that the process it's different to able-bodied selection. So generally speaking, like they'll allocate a couple of spots for the first two across the line in each age group, or something along those lines. And if you come first or second, and it rolls down, you'll get in. But with the it's called physically challenged category. So there's a whole bunch of different disabilities that can compete, like myself, or there might be someone with whatever you name it, different disabilities.
Right.
But there's only 5 spots every year that they'll allow in the physically challenged category, and it's via what's it called? It's via a lottery, I guess. So essentially, like, you've had to have done an Ironman previously, and then you submit your history and what you've done, and a bit of a backstory and all sort of stuff, and it's a selection thing, but there's only five slots. So I entered this last year, and I got in first time. So I couldn't believe it. Like, I was sitting in the backyard, and I said to my wife, haven't heard back from whether the selection was supposed to be around about now. And then I flick open my mobile phone with my email, and it said, World Championship selection, and I click on it, and it says 4 other names, and the very last name on the list was me. And I said, I sort of taken it. And I turned it around and showed my wife, and we were just like,
you count that down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean,
just stoked. So couldn't believe it, but it was a dream come true to get in and get selected.
Well, let me tell you, here's the thing for you out there, kids. Keep scrolling on your phone like Dale does, because you never know what might pop up in the backyard, right?
Yeah,
Just gets it.
correct.
Fantastic. So when you got that, so now you're in it, Kona. Tell me then what happens for the prep because it's how far out from the
Yeah,
event
so
do they you find out?
that was yeah. I had about 6 months, which is about right. Like because I've done a few. Like I've obviously got a bit of a background. If you hadn't done one, you'd want a little bit more time.
Yeah,
But you wouldn't want to do much more than sort of a 5 month lead in. So yeah, there's 5 months of training, I guess. And yeah, towards the end there, like right towards the end, you're sort of doing a bit of heat preparation and stuff like that because
right.
obviously in Hawaii it's a lot hotter and we're coming out of a Melbourne winter, so you're going from training in the cold to into the heat. So I was spending time up in saunas and stuff like that around the corner at one of the local recovery places and doing things like that. But it was probably just a normal, typical like Ironman build that I do. And again, like it's kind of hard because you're juggling family, life,
Family
work,
work,
all that
a
sort of
whole
stuff. So
balance.
I'm
What's
not
it?
training pro hours. I'm just doing as much as I can to make
Yeah.
sure that I have a good day on the day.
Tell me about Kona though. What's different about it? Give us the links of the swim and the
Yeah.
cycle and the run.
Yeah, so it's the same. It's the same distance as any Ironman, which is a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike ride, and 42.2 kilometer marathon at the end. But the only difference with Kona is it's a non-wetsuit swim, whereas most of the other ones are all you're allowed a wetsuit, which gives you
Right.
buoyancy. So
Yes.
the swim's a little harder because it's an ocean swim. There's a bit more current as well
Yeah. Yeah.
over there as well. So it's quite a difficult swim for starters. Then you get out and you're on the bike and you basically head out of town and you head along this highway, which is so well known amongst the triathlon fraternity. It's the Queen K Highway, which is essentially through lava fields. And on TV, it looks quite flat, but it's a very undulating course.
Right.
And you do have a bit of elevation involved, but it's more just the heat out there in on the highway.
What sort of heat are we talking about? Do you recall?
I think look, it ranges between I think sort of 28 degrees, maybe through to about 33. But the humidity is what makes it high, and I think the radiant heat off the surface of the road and that as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
But there's no shade out there, so there's no trees or anything like that. So there's no respite from it all. So it's super hot. Like and 28 feels like you feel like you're in a sauna, when you're riding over there. So it was pretty oppressive.
Does it affect tire pressures?
I think it does. I think it does, but I wasn't told to reduce my tire pressure or anything like that. So yeah, I didn't look. Again, maybe.
Yeah, just interested. Yeah.
Not really sure to be honest on that one, Rob, but maybe. Yeah. So yeah, really tough, pretty tough bike ride. But then you get out on the run course, and again you sort of head out of town, back onto that highway, and you head down to this section called the Energy Lab, which is sort of like a downhill section where you're sort of not far from the ocean, but there's no wind out there or anything like that. So it's very exposed, and the wind sort of will cool you off a little bit. And so this part of the course is around about 25 to 30 kilometers into the run. So
Right.
it's a very tough part of the course. And then obviously it's just a grind. It's just it's just the heat gets you, and so by the end of the day you're pretty spent, and you've just got to manage your nutrition and try and get the fluids in as much as you can, that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's
And what about tell me that the lead up to it, because I believe you went over with a good bit of time. Like you didn't just rock up and the event was next day. You went
yeah,
over a couple of weeks beforehand. Was that be right?
not quite. Yeah, nearly. I think we went over about 9 or 10 days before,
Right.
and spent a bit of time over there and tried to get a bit of heat adaptation, I guess,
To
while you're
acclimatise to the heat
yeah,
and things.
acclimatise and whatnot. I had another guy from my tri club who's done it 4 times with me, so he was fantastic, showing me the ropes and telling me
Right.
do's and don'ts and all that sort of stuff. But in the lead up, I actually got food poisoning on the Tuesday.
No.
So
Right.
the race was on Saturday. Tuesday night, I'm up from 7 o'clock till 4 in the morning with gastro, or not gastro,
Oh.
food poisoning. So it's coming
Yes.
out of both ends and
Yeah. Great.
completely dehydrated by the Wednesday, and not the perfect lead in. And yeah, so that wasn't ideal. And that kind of affected me a little bit on race day
Right.
towards the end. But yeah, anyway, you do what you do.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
obviously got it done. So with the nutrition, what are you wanting to get into your body during that, and what are you avoiding when you're doing those events?
Oh, look, it's just you want to practice what you're going to have on race day
Yeah.
in training regularly. So I would just have like there's gels, which obviously you'd be well aware of.
Yeah.
But it's more about like, making sure, you know what you're going to have on race day, and that
Right.
you practice it. So, with gels and sports drink and all that sort of stuff. But I would use a brand, not doing a pump here, but
No,
I'd
no.
use a brand called Infinite, which is it's just like a mix that I use, and I wouldn't take any food like bars or gels. It was just this liquid form,
Right. Okay.
and then on the run I'd have gels. So
Yeah, yeah. And so for you, what was that? What was the? I guess what was the hardest part of Kona, and was it different than what you expected?
the hardest part. Yeah, look, the run's obviously the hardest part because it's the last leg. You're obviously tired at that point, and it's really just I would say from probably about 15K through to about 30K is the toughest part of the race for me. Just because that's the time when you're questioning why you're doing it, and then once you sort of get to the 30K mark, you're like, well, it's just like I can do this. I've done 12Ks. I do it regularly
Yes.
on a Tuesday night. I can get here from here. It's just getting to
Getting
30K.
to that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really great because it's how my mind often works. Like, oh, it's only this amount now. I've done that, or
yeah.
I've ridden. I kind of go, oh, it's just down to Morty, or it's just down to Frankston,
No,
or
no, yeah.
it's interesting how your mind works
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
isn't it?
It's just biting off small chunks.
Yeah, just chunking it down and just
Yep.
snipping it and getting it done. And your mind starts to play games. But I love that one where you're saying, why am I doing this? Why did I sign
I
up?
know.
I remember doing a cycling race. And I was going up this hill. Myself and this other guy were kind of struggling up this hill, and this smart ass was sitting outside his house, and he goes, "Hey, you two, just realise you're paid to do this."
I
And
know.
if I had had the strength, I would have gone off and punched his lights out. But it
Yeah,
was but he was dead right. He's
yeah,
like, yeah, we kind of did. Let's keep going. You didn't. So, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
yeah.
When your mind starts to go through, I want to do this. Why did I commit to this? And something we can get over that though, isn't it? You're just onto
That's
that next
right.
next wave.
Yeah,
So when you did Kona, was it everything you thought it would be? And how'd you
yeah.
finish? And were you happy with
Oh,
how you went? And yeah, tell me
yeah.
about
No,
that.
look, it was everything I had hoped it to be. It's amazing. It's the most iconic race in triathlon, and yeah, literally it was. I loved every second of it. I loved just being there with my family. That was the main thing. Like the race was fantastic, but at the end of the day, the best part of it was just having my wife and two kids there with me.
Yeah. And you had some
Um,
great photos. I remember seeing some photos of the of with your wife Brie and the kids there,
yeah,
just watching you come to
yeah,
the finishing line. If I remember a couple of really good ones, and that must have been
yeah,
so
yeah.
exciting for you.
Yeah, that was the best part was when my kids ran up and jumped up on me and just said, "Dad, I'm so proud of you." And my little boy said, "Dad, you're amazing." And that made it all worthwhile for me. Like, yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It is fantastic that part, and I guess that would have driven you along. Definitely doing that. So tell me, what's up next for you?
Well, I'm taking a backward step from it all this year because it's such a big thing, especially for my
Mm,
wife who's got to deal with it all, and we've got two kids and trying to get through life as these
yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm not gonna be doing any Ironmans this year or anything like that. I've got a 5-year-old, so I'm just enjoying, and a 12-year-old girl as well. So
Yes,
I'm just enjoying spending time with them on the
yeah,
weekends. I haven't had to, I never missed I might have missed one. Rarely missed my daughter's netball games during the
yeah,
whole. I'd always make sure I'd ride and get home for that
yeah,
on
yeah.
Saturday. But now my little boy, he's sort of starting Oz kick and basketball and all that sort of stuff. So I want to be there for them this year, and next year and all that sort of stuff. And
Mm,
I've done it now, and
yeah,
it's not that I'll never do another one, or I want to keep going and do other things. But at the moment, they're my priority, and I'm
yeah.
just enjoying that, having a bit of time away from it. So I'm doing swim run, this new thing on Sunday, which is just local to Beaumaris. So
Right, yeah,
doing
yeah.
that, but yeah, not out to break any records. Just
Yeah,
just
but you're keeping fit, and I think, but what you're entering into now, and I can tell you from experience, you sort of put your own sporting thing on hold for a little bit while you
yes,
work with your kids, and it
that's right.
is amazing because there's only a limited amount of time, right? And they
Correct.
have about you can look at the kids' age, it's about sort of 5 to 7 years or five
That's
to
right.
10 years of when you're with them, taking them to sport and all sorts of sports, and
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of taking two of my boys to world championships in yachting,
Oh, wow.
One of them was in Argentina, funnily enough, and
Yep.
it's really exciting. And then there's school sport, and I loved every basketball game I went to, and there's football games. But then, obviously, we did a lot of yacht racing, so taking them to regattas all across Australia. And there's a whole parents group, and there's a lot of really good fathers and mothers who are really great sailors, and they just now it's about their kids. And
Yep.
what's really interesting, once they go through it, the kids get their own driver's licenses or do whatever they do, you kind of come back to it. And so the same group are now doing masters stuff,
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
at the elite level. They really,
Yep.
honestly, they haven't really lost anything. In fact, they've actually picked it up because they've been with their kids, and their kids are getting the most amazing coaching. You kind of by osmosis start picking up things
Yep.
as well, which
Yep.
is really cool. So you're in for a really good ride, and I think it's really admirable of you to do that and spend that time with them, because it is an absolute joy and it doesn't last.
That's right. Yeah, 100%.
So really, Team Dale is Bree and the kids, which is they've done a
Yep.
fantastic job supporting you, and well done for you for taking them too, because that's not you could have gone across there and done it yourself. There's no question about that. But the joy at the end, I think, makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it without them. They're the reason I do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're the reason I do what I do is because I want to impress my kids.
Well, that's what they call you, Super Dad. There's no question
That's
about
right.
that. And of course, Bree's cycling now. And when did, they go tell me this? When did Bree start cycling? When was that? Was that during COVID?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. So my wife, she wasn't really an athlete as such, but she picked up cycling, and she used to complain to me and say, "What? I don't want you going out there. It's dangerous out there." And next thing a couple of her friends said, "Why don't you come along for a ride?" And she started there. She rides more than me, so she'll get up and ride 3 or 4 mornings a week
Right.
now, and we take turns and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's healthy because she's also got a business, an accounting business, so she's really busy, and it's that you need your own time and to have that outlet as well. So it's for her. So I love that she does it.
Now, what do you do? You talked about work-life balance before. Tell us, what are you doing work-wise these days?
Yes, I've got a family business with my dad. So we've got a brand called Otway Footwear, which is like a gumboot and work boot business. We also have another brand called Cloggies, which are like sort of similar to like your Crocs. We do garden shoes and
Oh, right. Okay. I know
things
the
like
brand.
that.
Yeah, I didn't know it was yours, though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's an importing business. They're our own brands and keeps us pretty busy. So we've got a warehouse down in Carrum Downs, and my dad's always been in importing and footwear and stuff like that. So I'm sort of doing that with him. We've been doing it for about, I'd say it's 13, 14 years now.
Right.
Been going. So it's been going a while, but it keeps us busy.
Yeah, and not too far away from home as well. So
No, that's right. Yeah, no, it's good.
Fantastic. Now, if people want to find out a bit more about you, what's some ways they can contact you, or any socials or anything like that you want to share?
Yeah,
even the footwear stuff. That's okay. We can do that on the show.
No, that's okay. I'm not big on Instagram and Facebook and all that sort of stuff, but I couldn't even tell you my Instagram handle. But look, if you look up Dale Grant on Instagram and Facebook, I'm sure you'll find me. I think it's Dale_Grant.5, something
That's
like that.
pretty cool.
On Instagram, yeah. So that's me.
And I think you're on LinkedIn as well.
I'd
People
be
got
happy to help.
questions. Any questions around what you've been doing? So look, fantastic, Dale. Thanks so much for joining us. It's a real insight into Kona, but also a real insight into you and what's driven you as well. And thanks for openly sharing. It's been an absolute pleasure having a chat. We'll catch up.
Thanks very much, Rob. Have a good one.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the It's All Possible podcast. You can contact me at rob@robhartnett.com, or my website, robhartnett.com, or on LinkedIn. Remember to check out the previous seasons and episodes of the podcast and the show notes for more details on this episode's guest. For more inspiration, remember to check out the It's All Possibility playlist on Spotify, which contains a collection of upbeat, positive music I use for inspiration in my live performances. Until next time, live with passion and a perspective of possibility.